The rebellion surged forward, fueled by the momentum of its victories and the unyielding determination of its leaders. Yet, with every step forward, the weight of the Empire's response grew heavier. The war, now spanning hundreds of systems, had become a relentless tide of destruction and sacrifice. For humanity, there was no turning back. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, watching as a once fractured species defied the might of an ancient regime. The battles that followed were a brutal test of endurance and strategy. On the moon of Cryos 7, a critical Imperial fuel depot became the site of one of the war's most pivotal confrontations. The human forces, vastly outnumbered, relied on ingenuity and guerrilla tactics to infiltrate and sabotage the depot. The Empire, confident in its overwhelming numbers, was blindsided when the entire facility erupted in a cascade of explosions, crippling their fleet's ability to resupply in the region. Though the victory came at a staggering cost, nearly half the human fighters perished. It marked a turning point. The Empire's forces were not invincible, and their resources, while vast, were not inexhaustible. Meanwhile, cracks began to form within the Empire itself. The prolonged conflict revealed the inefficiencies of its sprawling bureaucracy and the arrogance of its leadership. High-ranking officials argued over how to handle the rebellion, some advocating for total annihilation of human systems, while others warned of the diplomatic consequences of such actions. Among the latter was Senator Varric, a shrewd politician who saw the rebellion not merely as a military threat, but as a symptom of the Empire's unsustainable policies. Varric's warnings fell on deaf ears, but his dissent planted seeds of doubt among the Empire's allies. Unbeknownst to the Empire, humanity's resilience was bolstered by quiet support from unexpected quarters. Several alien species, long oppressed by imperial rule, began to provide covert aid. Supplies, intelligence, and even volunteers filtered into human space, strengthening the rebellion's resolve. Among these allies were the Lithari, a race of nomadic traders whose mastery of stealth technology proved invaluable. Their ships, nearly undetectable to imperial sensors, carried vital resources across contested systems, keeping the rebellion alive in its darkest hours. Admiral Elena Torev, now hailed as the leader of humanity's fight for freedom, prepared for the final phase of the war. Using the intelligence gleaned from the captured Invincible, her strategists identified a weak point in the Empire's defenses, the Arcos Nexus. This massive space station, located at the crossroads of major hyperspace lanes, was the logistical heart of the Empire's military operations. If humanity could take the Nexus, it would cripple the Empire's ability to project its power across the galaxy. The plan was audacious. A decoy fleet would draw the Empire's forces away, while a strike team infiltrated the Nexus to disable its defenses from within. The mission required precision, courage, and sacrifice, qualities that had come to define humanity's struggle. As the fleets assembled, Admiral Torev addressed her forces one last time. Her voice, steady yet filled with emotion, echoed through the comm channels. Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every life crushed under the Empire's boot. Today, we claim our destiny. The Battle of the Arcos Nexus began with a ferocity that eclipsed all previous engagements. The Empire, realizing the station's significance, committed its most elite forces to its defense. Starships clashed in a maelstrom of fire and metal, while the strike team, led by Captain Darius Venn, fought their way through the labyrinthine corridors of the Nexus. The fighting was brutal, every corridor and hangar bay contested with blood and sweat. At a critical moment, the strike team reached the station's central command hub. Faced with overwhelming resistance, Captain Venn made a fateful decision: to hold the line himself while his team completed their objective. As the team disabled the station's power core, Venn's last transmission crackled across the comms: for Marcus. For humanity. Moments later, the Nexus's defenses collapsed, leaving it vulnerable to the waiting human fleet. The victory was decisive. The destruction of the Arcos Nexus shattered the Empire's logistical backbone, plunging their forces into disarray. Across the galaxy, Imperial fleets retreated, unable to maintain their supply lines. On human colonies and allied worlds, celebrations erupted, the cries of victory echoing across the stars. The Empire, for the first time in its long history, was forced to confront the unthinkable: defeat. In the aftermath, the rebellion declared humanity's independence, formalizing its status as a free and sovereign power. The Galactic Empire, its pride wounded and its resources depleted, had no choice but to negotiate a ceasefire. The Treaty of Arcos, signed aboard the remnants of the Invincible, marked the end of the war and the beginning of a fragile peace. Admiral Torev, now a hero not only to humanity but to oppressed species across the galaxy, stood on the bridge of her flagship, gazing out at the stars. The cost of victory weighed heavily on her, but so too did the promise of a brighter future. Humanity had risen from the brink of extinction to carve out its place among the stars. And though the scars of war would remain, so too would the legacy of those who had fought and sacrificed for freedom. As the fleet disbanded and humanity turned its efforts to rebuilding, Marcus Wolf's words lingered in the hearts of all who had fought for the cause. Humanity will rise. They had risen, and now they would endure. The days following Marcus Wolf's execution were marked by a seething silence among humanity's colonies, a stillness that held within it the weight of a storm yet to break. The Empire, confident in the effectiveness of its brutal display, tightened its grip, deploying additional fleets to patrol rebellious systems. But the silence was not submission, it was preparation. Behind closed doors, in hidden bunkers and encrypted channels, humanity began to mobilize. The first act of retaliation came from Haven 5, a colony known for its technological advancements. Engineers who had once worked on agricultural drones and mining rigs now repurposed their skills for war. Within weeks, Haven 5 unveiled its first weaponized fleet. Sleek, agile ships equipped with cutting-edge cloaking technology and plasma cannons that could pierce even the Empire's most advanced defenses. The fleet was christened the Phantoms, a name that soon became synonymous with vengeance. Elsewhere, colonies that had long been isolated from one another formed an unprecedented alliance. Diplomats worked tirelessly to unite factions that had once been rivals, and military leaders pooled their resources to develop a cohesive strategy. At the heart of this alliance was a council led by Admiral Elena Torev, a former protege of Marcus Wolf. Elena, a tactical genius in her own right, had inherited Marcus's unyielding resolve and his vision of a united humanity. Her first order as leader of the council was simple: no more waiting. We strike. The first target was the Imperial outpost on Theta 12, a vital supply hub for the Empire's fleet. The mission was audacious: a coordinated attack using guerrilla tactics and the newly formed Phantom Fleet. As the human forces approached, the outpost's commander scoffed at their numbers. The Empire had long dismissed humanity's technological capabilities as primitive, a mistake they would not live to repeat. The Phantom struck with precision, disabling the outpost's communication arrays before its defenses could activate. Ground forces, composed of miners, farmers, and former soldiers, stormed the base, overwhelming the Empire's troops with sheer determination. The victory at Theta 12 sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the Empire suffered a loss at the hands of a species it had deemed inferior. Imperial propaganda attempted to downplay the event, but the truth spread faster than they could suppress it. Footage of human soldiers raising the banner of unity over the outpost became a symbol of hope for oppressed worlds across the galaxy. The Empire's response was swift. Admiral Swarn, whose betrayal had led to Marcus's capture, was tasked with quelling the rebellion. A seasoned tactician, Swarn understood the danger humanity posed if left unchecked. He ordered a counteroffensive, targeting colonies suspected of harboring rebel forces. The attacks were brutal, leaving entire settlements in ruins. But rather than intimidate humanity into submission, these atrocities strengthened their resolve. For every colony the empire destroyed, 3 more joined the rebellion, offering their resources, their ships, and their lives to the cause. As the conflict escalated, humanity demonstrated a level of ingenuity that caught the empire off guard. On Delphos 3, engineers developed gravity disruption mines capable of rendering imperial warships immobile. On Vega 7, scientists devised energy shields that could absorb and redirect enemy fire. Each new invention tilted the scales, proving that the Empire's technological superiority was not insurmountable. The rebellion's success was not without cost. Each victory came with sacrifices, and every loss was a painful reminder of what was at stake. Families were torn apart, entire cities reduced to ash. But amidst the destruction, humanity found strength in unity. For the first time in its fragmented history, humans fought not as individuals or isolated colonies, but as a single cohesive force. Marcus Wolf's name became their rallying cry, his final words a mantra: "Humanity will rise." Admiral Torev, now leading the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, knew the war was far from over. The Empire's vast resources and military might were still formidable, and every victory only tightened their resolve to crush the rebellion. Yet, Torev saw opportunity in their arrogance. The Empire had grown complacent, believing itself invincible. It underestimated humanity's capacity for adaptation, for innovation, and for relentless determination. The turning point came with the capture of an imperial dreadnought, the Invincible. Once a symbol of the Empire's dominance, the Invincible was now a trophy of human ingenuity. Engineers worked tirelessly to reverse engineer its systems, unlocking secrets that leveled the playing field. Using the dreadnought as a decoy, Admiral Torev orchestrated a daring ambush on the Empire's Central Command fleet near the Nebula Rift. The battle was a masterpiece of strategy, with human forces exploiting the Empire's rigid doctrines and predictable tactics. By the end of the engagement, 3 Imperial flagships lay in ruins, their debris a testament to humanity's resilience. As news of the victory spread, the rebellion's momentum became unstoppable. Colonies that had once hesitated to join the fight now pledged their full support. Even species subjugated by the Empire began to see humanity as a beacon of hope, offering covert assistance in the form of intelligence and supplies. The rebellion was no longer a desperate struggle. It was a full-scale revolution. Admiral Svarn, facing mounting pressure from the Empire's high command, began to question his own strategies. For the first time, doubt crept into the minds of the Empire's leaders. They had executed Marcus Wolf to extinguish rebellion, but his death had done the opposite. His legacy had become a weapon far more potent than any fleet or cannon. As the rebellion prepared for its next move, humanity stood on the precipice of a new era. The cost of the war was great, but the stakes were greater. They were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for freedom, for the right to shape their own destiny. And they would stop at nothing to ensure that Marcus Wolf's dream, a united, independent humanity, became a reality. The Galactic Empire, a sprawling constellation of power and control, had ruled the stars for millennia. Its reach extended to thousands of star systems, and its laws were absolute, enforced with an iron grip by fleets of warships and legions of soldiers. For most species under its rule, compliance was survival, resistance a death sentence. Humanity, though young compared to the Empire's centuries-old dominion, had proven to be an unruly subject. Spread across distant colonies, humans had a history of rebellion, their defiance stoking resentment and fear among the Empire's rulers. General Marcus Wolf was the embodiment of that defiance. Tall, with weathered features and eyes that burned with unyielding determination, he had become a symbol of human resistance. A strategist of unmatched skill, Marcus had led his people in battles that turned the tide against imperial oppression more times than the empire cared to admit. He was not merely a soldier, but a leader who inspired loyalty through his unwavering belief in humanity's right to self-determination. To his comrades, he was a hero. To the empire, a dangerous anomaly. The event that led to Marcus's capture began innocuously, as most tragedies do. A convoy of human refugees fleeing the empire's territorial expansion was intercepted by an imperial fleet. Reports of atrocities against the refugees reached Marcus, who was stationed at the Orion III outpost. Against the counsel of his advisors, he mobilized his forces, intercepting the imperial fleet in a daring ambush. The victory was swift, but came at a cost. Among the captured imperial officers was Admiral Svarn, a cunning strategist with a reputation for turning defeats into opportunities. Svarn, under orders from the Empire's high command, initiated a parley. The terms seemed genuine. Negotiations for a lasting ceasefire between humanity and the Empire. Despite his suspicions, Marcus agreed, believing that even a tenuous peace was worth pursuing to save countless lives. The meeting was arranged on neutral ground, a barren moon far from any major colony. Marcus arrived with a small escort, adhering to the agreed-upon protocols. It was a trap. As Marcus stepped into the negotiation chamber, concealed turrets activated, and his escort was obliterated. Marcus himself was subdued by an energy net, his trusted aides powerless to intervene as imperial soldiers swarmed the area. Svarn's smirk, as he declared Marcus a prisoner of the Empire, was a moment burned into the memories of those who survived. The trial was a spectacle designed to humiliate. The Empire broadcasted the proceedings across its territories, framing Marcus as a war criminal responsible for the deaths of countless innocents. The evidence was fabricated, the witnesses coerced, and the verdict predetermined. Marcus, shackled and defiant, refused to plead for mercy. His voice, though stripped of its former authority by the constraints of his captivity, carried a weight that silenced even his most vocal accusers. "If justice were truly your concern," he said, his words resonating across the galaxies, "it is the Empire that would stand trial for its crimes. You fear humanity not because of our rebellion, but because we remind you that your power is not absolute." His execution was swift and brutal. The Empire chose a public hanging, a form of punishment deliberately archaic, intended to evoke terror and subjugation. The gallows were erected in the capital city of Arcos Prime, its stark lines a grim contrast against the glittering skyline. Hundreds of thousands of imperial citizens gathered to witness the event, while countless more watched through holographic transmissions. The noose tightened around Marcus's neck, but he showed no fear. As the lever was pulled, his final words echoed in the silence. "Humanity will rise." The Empire expected Marcus's death to crush human resistance, to sow despair among the colonies. Instead, it ignited a firestorm. Across human territories, grief turned into rage. Citizens who had once been indifferent to the struggle now took up arms. Leaders who had hesitated to challenge the Empire openly declared their allegiance to the cause. Marcus's martyrdom became a rallying cry, his name a symbol of unity and defiance. In the days following the execution, the Empire's leaders convened in secret, congratulating themselves on eliminating their greatest adversary. They could not fathom that they had made a fatal miscalculation. Marcus Wolfe had been a man of flesh and blood, but in death, he became something far more dangerous, a legend.